Hey everyone, welcome back to the ArmSoar YouTube channel. My name is Thomas, and today we're doing something a little bit different. So we're going to be doing a Q&A, and basically I asked on Facebook to see if anyone had any questions for us. It could be either about DLGs or ArmSoar, and here's a list of some of them. So let's get started. The first one is from Blair Smith. Are there any specific strength building exercises you can do to improve your coordination and launch heights? Of course, with DLG's launch height, very, very important. Now, I sit in front of the computer all day, every day. So I'm not very athletic or very fit, as you can probably tell. And I've actually gained a lot of weight in recent years. But I have found yoga to really help, and that really helps with coordination, especially with range of motion as well. So that's the first thing you can try. And the second thing is some strength buildup. The upper chest muscles are going to be very important, especially because when you launch, it does have, even though we try to launch, flat or horizontally, there is going to be a little bit of an upward motion. And we're not using our forearms, we're using our chest muscles. I don't know what the technical term for chest muscles is, but you understand what I'm saying. The second part is going to be your core. For cores, I did a lot of crunches, especially with medicine ball, crunches and then turn left and right. That helped a lot as well. You're going to have to Google them for technical terms. Hey guys, before we go further, if you like this video, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. It really helps our channel grow. And YouTube doesn't know if people like our videos or not unless you click those buttons. If you really like it, share it with your friends. It really helps our channel grow. Thank you. Next question from Eric Dahl Christensen. He has a couple questions here, but let's tackle this one. How do you identify strong and weak parts of your flying to make sure you practice right? Eric, you're giving me a lot more credit than I'm due. I don't really have a plan to see what works and what doesn't work in my flying. But I can tell that after flying for so many years, I do know my strengths and weaknesses. So let's start with strengths, right? There's not a lot of them, unfortunately. I'm very good at making quick decisions in air. So if I'm in lift, I can circle around really quickly. I can chase thermals, with confidence and climb. In those conditions, I don't need to fly very smoothly. And so the opposite side is my weaknesses is trying to fly smooth. You guys probably watched some of my flying videos, and if you're a beginner or intermediate pilot, you might think that I fly, relatively smoothly. It's the magic of YouTube. But if you're an expert pilot, you can probably tell I'm not flying as smoothly as a lot of the really top pilots. And so in weak conditions where flying smoothness is very important, that's something I try to practice on my practice sessions, and not my, just going out to fly for fun kind of practice sessions. And of course, my left-handed turns is a lot better than my right-handed turns. And again, I don't try to look for that weakness, but it's there. So if I'm actually practicing, then I would try to focus more on right turns instead of doing left turns. Also from Eric. How do you identify and practice mental skills to improve your scores? When I was still living in China and actually winning events, I took it a lot more seriously. And so, before the flyouts, I would have my headphones on and I would be very focused listening to, Eye of the Tiger and trying to get my mental game on. But I don't do that anymore because I don't win contests anymore. And the level in North America is a lot higher. The one thing that I found to really kind of pull me back, especially in the beginning in high level competition, is confidence in ranging. Now, ranging far to get a thermal, it's really a confidence thing. Even being able to confidently say there's a thermal somewhere. I think it's a big part of it is mental. If you believe in yourself, you're going to be able to keep going further and further and further, even though, you're going to hit a lot of sink before you hit that lift. So if you're mentally not prepared for that, you might turn around and come back before you actually make lift and you're going to land short. So in practice, during that time, I don't do this as much anymore, but I try to really push my envelope to see how far I can go before I can't make it back. And I always try to push it further and further and further until I really can't make it. And over time, that does improve. I can go further out and still come back. And because I've been doing that, I have confidence mentally. I'm prepared to do that in a competition. So I don't know if that answers your question, but anyway, next question. This one's from Tommy Say Louis. Best way to install antennas because of carbon, inside or outside? If there's carbon in the nose, you have to put the antenna outside. Now that said, there are a lot of planes out there that looks like the entire nose is carbon, but it's not. For an example, the Deviant or the BAMF2 behind over here, behind me, the entire nose looks like it's carbon because it's black, but actually the front part of it is just fiberglass but painted. In which case the antenna can go inside. If it is entirely carbon, then yeah, you're gonna want to have the antennas outside. There's no carbon receiver, okay? 2.4 gigahertz, it's not going to pass through carbon. Next question is from Tom Wolf. So 2 basic questions from a long-time glider flyer, but newbie DLG flyer. We have a lot of that in our community. Number 1, what is the best solution for getting the receiver antennas outside of a carbon fuse with minimum induced drag? Honestly, I don't think anyone is going to be able to feel how much drag the antennas are running, but if it was me, I would just drill 2 holes on the side of the nose, one on the left, one on the right. The antennas are going to come out at 45 degrees towards the back. A little spot of glue to make sure they don't move around, and I'd call that a day. And number 2, do DLG flyers worry about laterally balancing wingtips given the weight of the throwing peg? Honestly, I can't feel the difference, so I don't do it. There are people who say they can feel the difference of a gram or 2 on the wingtip. Gavin, I don't think they can feel it, but whatever. If you can feel it, balance it. I know Gavin balances it, but I don't. Now, caveat, if it is like 5 grams difference, yeah, you're going to want to at least do some balancing. But if it's only like gram or 2, don't bother. Next, Joshua Marbling. Number 1, how do you or do you adjust your launch mode elevator offset for different wind conditions? I find if my launch mode elevator offset is tuned for a good rotation in still air, the plane wants to do a violent loop behind me if I launch into the wind. If I tune for launching into the wind, my launches in still air are too shallow. Absolutely. And there's actually, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do for your launch as well. Now, you might think, oh, for launch height, you just want to get it as high as possible. Yeah, in still conditions, that's kind of the case. So I do a very aggressive launch preset that's going to go straight up, and then I push over. And that's going to be the highest I can launch. Now in wind, as you noticed, it's going to push your rotation quite a bit more. So it's going to come back and it's going to loop back. So in windy conditions, I'm going to take a couple clicks of elevator down to make sure it does climb without looping back. Now, sometimes I might not even want it to climb as high as possible. I may compromise some of my launch height for forward motion if I know that, number 1, it's windy, and number 2, there might be a thermal in front of me somewhere. Then I may have a shallower climb so that it can go toward that. And that is going to get me to the thermal at a higher height than just going straight up, pushing over, and then battling the wind forward. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Second question from Joshua. How do you tune zoom mode? I use manufacturers recommend reflex and fairly neutral elevator, but what should I look for as I adjust reflex to try to optimize for this flight stage? So the manufacturer's recommendation is going to be very close to the target. Now that said, it's only a starting point, right? It might be a little bit different for everyone. For very strong launchers, you're going to want to have that reflex as set up by the guide because you want the model to be more ballistic. If you're not as strong of a launcher, you might have less reflex than what the instructions call for because you might want a little bit of lift on the wing when you're launching it, and that seems to go a little bit higher for people who are not launching as hard. But at the end of the day, what am I trying to optimize for in this flight stage? It's going to be launch height. So use an altimeter, use a Aero, whatever tool you have with your radio system, and just keep doing it. Do 5 launches with 2 millimeters reflex and see how high that goes. Do another 5 with 1.5 millimeter. So you're optimizing for launch height. Everything else doesn't really matter. Next question is from John Finch. Do you do the aero design for the ArmSoar planes or do you hire it out? Okay. So for the exception of the Arctis, because that was just a licensed production, everything else I designed, at least mostly. So I basically set the parameters of what I want this plane to do and how I want it to behave. And then I take a look at the available airfoils. Most of these are going to be from Gerald Taylor or GT from RC Groups. So his airfoils, perfect. And I basically take whatever airfoil from him that I feel is most suitable for this task, and either we use it straight or we change it up a little bit and then put it onto our model. And of course the wing and the airfoils, it is going to be there's a lot of back and forth, changing one thing, changing the other. So it does take a lot of time, and it does take quite a bit of experience because we've done quite a few commercially available models now, and we learn a bit every single time. Now we are launching 2 new planes, as you may know. Number one is the Phantom. That is a balsa built up F5K model. That's my first commercially available balsa plane that we're designing. And so that is not from GT, that is AG series from Dr. Drella. And the next one we're doing is the Medina. So Medina, I think, is the first actual ArmSoar model that I didn't design. And so that's done in partnership with Marcus as well as Performance Models in Australia. And it's based on the Aussie Res. So Aussie Res, if you've been following RES at all, it's dominated Australia for the past year. I think it's won the last 11 or 12 competitions. So it's a really good model. And basically we're like, yo, Marcus, this is really good. We want to do an RES, and actually we want to do an ARF. We're not looking to do a kit, right? So we'll have kits available, but our focus is on producing something that you can just buy. You don't have to spend 2 weeks to build it. You can just put in your receiver, put in your servos, and then you can, pretty much go fly. And so that one is designed by Marcus and not by myself. Next question, Jordan Bolton. How did you start with making your gliders? Did you start out by yourself making molds and making the carbon yourself? And how did you progress into a viable business with enough demand? Your tutorial videos are top notch, by the way. Perfect. I think you're overestimating me as well. I don't do production work. I've built some models. I've done some layups for fun and to learn, for testing stuff, but I don't do serial production. And actually, we didn't start by that either. So we started in 2011, I think, by reselling FrSky. So FrSky is a model made in China. It was a beginner model. I wanted to start flying DLGs. So I got a batch of those. I kept one to fly, and I sold the rest to keep funding this hobby, and that's kind of how we started. And the second part is, how did you progress into a viable business with enough demand? Honestly, just a lot of luck. We try our best to make sure all of our customers are happy. We work really hard to make sure the quality, the after-sale support, everything is there, and we want to support the community as much as we can. And I think over time, people enjoy what they see from us, from our products, from the support we give. And that's started to generate more demand, and we just kept growing from there. Next question's from Ben Levitt. What was your background before starting ArmSoar? Mechanical engineering, glider piloting, both? Assuming you were already RC piloting, how did you decide to move from hobbyist to working in the field? So before I started ArmSoar, I was still a student when I started it, and actually I think for the first little while I was still in school as well. It's a long time, I don't quite remember. But I was studying architectural and building engineering technology. So it sounds very fancy. We did learn, structural engineering stuff, but those were all static loads and static engineering, and it wasn't dynamic, and we didn't do any aerodynamical stuff. So not a lot of stuff really transferred over other than time management. And actually I dropped out after third year, so I just knew it wasn't really something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And after that, I continued working on ArmSoar, but I actually moved to Hong Kong to work with my dad. We started a business selling frozen foods, but after a couple of years of that, it was really boring. It just wasn't what I wanted to do forever. So I stopped doing that with my dad, and I just focused on ArmSoar. All right, next question is from Gene in Ukraine. Gene, if you're watching this, stay safe. Do you have any side businesses or daytime jobs? Kind of, yes and no. So ArmSoar, we built up ArmSoar when I was still living in Asia. I lived there for about 7 years or so. And so when we moved back in 2018 and sold off most of our business, because most of our business was just importing and reselling within China. And so we had to sell that when we were moving back because we could no longer, take care of that. So it was sold to Aero Plus. And so when we came back to North America, ArmSoar was a tiny company. We did very little business. And honestly, it was not going to be able to support, a wage for me, at least not something that could, provide for my family. And so at that point, I did go out and find a side job. I was handing out flyers at Costco for a few months. standing there trying to get people to sign up for free estimates on their home HVAC systems. And then after a few months of that, I actually went and became a HVAC salesperson. And I did that for, I think, a year and a half or so. And it makes good money, at least makes a lot more money than selling DLGs. But it was time to go back and focus on ArmSoar, because we had, over those 2 years or so, we were able to build ArmSoar back to something that was sustainable. And actually, sustainability that's a big thing because of the conflict or the invasion in Ukraine right now. And if you're not familiar, then all of our models now, as well as our upcoming F5J Suprema, is made in Ukraine. Now, of course, all of our colleagues in Ukraine are literally running for their lives, so we don't have it as bad as them. But in terms of ArmSoar, we've lost a very, very significant investment. And we have, I think, 7 or 8 sets of molds, especially including 4-meter F5J molds. And of course, we're going to not have income from competition sailplane products for at least a few months. And even after we start working on a production line, it's going to take years to get back to where we were. And I say this because very luckily we do have a side business. And so the side business for ArmSoar is ArmSoar Media, and we do digital marketing and media production for others. And it basically leverages our about 11 years of experience in running an e-commerce store, building communities who are very enthusiastic about their products and being direct to consumer mostly. So we focus on helping these types of clients grow their business, essentially. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Adrian and PurpleAir, but basically PurpleAir is one of our clients now as well. And so we've been helping them grow awareness for their product. Adrian, he designed and produced the F3K Master app that's used to run pretty much all the F3K events around the world for many years. I think there's 1 or 2 other options now, but I think most events are still running F3K Master. So PurpleAir, basically what we call hyper-local real-time air quality sensors. So you can have the most accurate air quality information right from your phone or from your computer. And it's based out of a huge community of people who buy these sensors and uploads their data real-time into this giant map. It's a really cool project. So if you guys don't know anything about PurpleAir, definitely check it out. It's purpleair.com. If you guys are interested in a sensor, we have a discount code. Use ArmSoar. I'll link it down below. Use ArmSoar at checkout for your sensor. I think you get like $15 off of the sensor or something. Basically, you can get that sensor. You'll know exactly what kind of air quality is in your area, especially on the West Coast here. Very bad forest fires every year, right? And this is going to be able to tell you, what kind of conditions are like out there. And if there's anything that you're not aware of, but the sensor picks up, you'll know that as well. And air quality, huge thing. So one more question. This is also from Gene. One more. What tools do you use to run your business, online services, etc.? All right, so this is not directly a DLG question, but it is quite interesting to me because I always have to use these tools. And I know Gene, he runs FlightPoint RC in Ukraine, so it's very interesting to him as well. And maybe it'll be of interest to you guys as well. So we use quite a few softwares, so I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but these are the important ones. Number one, of course, our storefront, Shopify. Shopify has been powering our storefront since 2014, I think. So we've been with them for 7 or 8 years. Behind that is TradeGecko. Now it's called QuickBooks Commerce, and that's our inventory management system. The bad thing is they're sunsetting in Canada. So we're actually working with a developer for our own mini ERP system, and hopefully that will be online in the next month or 2. We also use Microsoft Office and Microsoft Teams. That's going to be our Office suite as well as internal communications. We use Monday. Monday is very important. Monday is our task management system. We have a half dozen people working inside ArmSoar now, so it's very important to make sure all the tasks, everything within all the different departments are handled properly and on time. And so that's all through monday.com. And we started using that, I think, in the last 2 years. I think before that we were using Asana, and before that we were using Team Vision, but Monday, by far the best system we've tried. And of course, there's going to be the payment gateways like PayPal. We don't use PayPal much anymore. I don't really like their customer service. We're using Sezzle as well. That's an option on our website, so you can buy now, pay later. That's a very recent addition. For our own money transfers, we use Wise. So in the past, we used bank transfers, super expensive. Exchange rates are ridiculous, right? They charge an additional like 2 or 2.5% on top of the Google rates. So Wise, it's a very fast, very cheap way to send money across borders. The rate is pretty much the Google rate. I think the first year we started using it, we saved at least $10,000 on fees and currency exchange, at least. So I'm gonna link down below. You guys can use that link. If you use that link and sign up with Wise, we get some perks as well, but you'll also be able to send money for free for your first payment. I think it's like up to $800 or something. So, if you haven't tried Wise yet, definitely try it, but it's gonna save you so much money if you're doing cross-border transfers. I think that's about it for today's video. Let us know down in the comments. This is the first Q&A we've done. I think we've actually went on way longer than I expected. I thought I would have been able to do this in like 10 minutes, but I think we're like 20, 30 minutes now. But anyway, leave some comments down below. If you have any questions that you want to be answered, leave it down below as well, and maybe we can tackle it in our next Q&A, whenever that happens. Yeah, if you like it, hit like, hit subscribe, and thank you for watching. Cheers.